Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Loan Officer Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kiles. We are powered by the Mortgage Marketing Animals. And if you want or are thinking about social media this year, then this is the podcast episode to listen to, because I've got a great friend, Michelle Berman Michael, with me today. What's up, girl?
I hope you are having a great start to your new year. Thanks for having me on this morning. I feel like it's crazy that we're in 2022, but
It is nuts.
I can't complain. I'm loving it.
Absolutely nuts. I tell you, I love Michelle and what she's doing. She is all things Instagram and social media. We've become fast friends to a good friend of ours, Kyle Draper, who was on the podcast several episodes back, but he's a great friend, introduced me to you, and you help loan officers and realtors get better at Instagram. And so you've got a program you've created called the Instagram Power Method, which we're going to dive deep into. But for all of our listeners who may not know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle? Tell us, number one, how did you get into it? Why social media, Instagram? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love telling this story. And I think, Steve, you and I have talked about it many times over, but just for anyone who might not know me at all, I always love starting with the very beginning, right? And for me, it started a long, long time ago. I've been an athlete since I can walk. And I believe that is why I am who I am today. And I believe that that's why we've been successful thus far. But the true story behind all of that is that I ended up going to college to swim. I swam all 4 years, graduated with a degree in journalism and psychology. So I was working as a full-time competitive athlete, essentially getting paid to swim, if you will. And also trying to get good grades and ended up graduating with a 4.0, which was kind of gnarly for a double major and a full-time athlete. Graduated, ended up getting my master's in social media public relations a few years after that, and decided to start my own company after being in corporate America for about 6 months. So I was in corporate America doing social media stuff for a small PR firm, and there was no creative freedom. There was no ability to stand out and be unique. And everything had to go through, 10 chains of command in order for it to get published or to be able to go out. And I just felt like in my heart, there had to be a better way. And I think that God's plan for me was just to do it on my own. And I believe wholeheartedly that I'm living proof that God will always do what God wants to do, not what we want to do. So I started my company in November 2014. And as far as how we got to realtors and loan officers, in all honesty, I was doing this for everybody. And then I hired a business coach who was in the UK, and I flew across the country or out of the country, my first time ever out of the country, to go meet somebody I had never met before. My parents were appalled. But I went and hung out with him and his wife, who became very quick friends of mine. And we spent 7 days in coffee shops, mind mapping everything out and figuring out, where is Michelle going to go in the next 10 years? And in that process, we discovered that I had a huge passion for real estate, and I didn't really know it. But in that time, I started realizing I love working with realtors. I love working with loan officers. I love the dollars and cents side of helping people save money, make money, all of that. I was a big saver myself. I ended up buying my first house with cash at 24 years old, which was ridiculous. But just being really smart with my money. And so when my business coach told me, hey, Michelle, find a client that you really are passionate about working with, I looked through my current client list, and my favorite clients were realtors that I was working with. I had the best relationship with them. I had the closest relationship with them as far as outside of work. And so I just decided to double down and go all in and say, I may not be a realtor myself. I may not be a loan officer, but I have a love for them. And so I essentially face planted into the real estate loan space. And then just reverse engineered all of my success as far as growing my business on Instagram to teach other realtors and loan officers how to do it for themselves.
Man, I love that. Well, and it was funny. You and I have been friends now for probably 6 months. And it was funny. We just did our Freedom Club event in San Antonio back in December. And one of my loan officer, great friend of mine, was on stage presenting. And she said your name because you've helped her with her Instagram and some of the social presence. And I laughed. I was like, I know Michelle. That's my friend too. And so, hey, listen, I'm so thrilled to have you here. So I want to know this. Okay, we rolled into 2022, And we've got loan officers that are really good at social media. And then we've got people that are listening today and they're not very good at social media. Give us some of the things we need to be thinking about in 2022 so that we can, I love what Gary Vee says, be the mayor of your digital town, of your town, and influence. And, and how do we become better at social media? How do we get better at it? How do we make it really effective and not just something that we're, wasting time doing?
Yeah, I just had a conversation yesterday with a really good private client of mine about this exact thing. She's like, I've hired other social media people in the past and I've just struggled with content that's gone out. It just feels like it's not me. It feels really inauthentic. It feels like, I work for X company and I just log into their portal and all the content looks the exact same. And it's really common. Like that's just a really common thing in the industry. And while that's easy, right, for all of those people who are using that, it's easy to log in and just hit post and have it out of sight, out of mind. But in 2022, if there's one thing I can tell anybody is that will not work. Doing content like that will not work. Your people don't care about that stuff. Your people don't want low value. Your people don't want stock images. Your people want you. And I know Kyle would be really proud of me for saying this because Kyle and I say it to each other all the time. Your people need you. So the version of you when you're at your best and even when you're at your worst is who your people want to see. So the mantra of 2022 being stop posting stuff that has nothing to do with you. Stop posting things that are not personal to you, meaning they're just, kind of cookie cutter content. Take the time, carve out an hour a week. I don't care how busy you are and make it intentional. If you can't post 5 days a week, post 3, right? Yeah. But nobody listening to this can say that they don't have time to do that because they do. And they just aren't making time for it. So if your business is important to you in 2022 and the growth that you're after, whether your word is scale or grow or influence or whatever your word for the year might be, you can't do that if you're not you. So,
I love that. Yeah. Hey, well, so being you, what does that look like as far as post? So are you thinking about pillars of content? Are you thinking like, let's say you're looking at an hour a week. Okay. Today's that hour. We're going to plan out content for this week. How do you go about doing that or thinking about what content to drop for the week or for the next 2 weeks or the next 30 days?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk 30 days because I know a lot of you guys are here listening. You're busy, right? You have a lot of loans to take care of. You had a lot of houses to go sell. So it's how do I make time work for me in just an hour? Now, what I will tell you is if the first thing you should do is come up with a topic for the entire month. Right. And this is what I call value series. So anybody who's ever been in my sphere or kind of in my inner circle knows that value series is your value driven content. So it is you answering or solving a problem of your ideal client. And you're going to make it one topic for the entire month that you break down into 5 different pieces or 5 different posts. So I just did one the other day with a client who happens to be married to a gentleman in the military, as am I. So we just kind of, connected on that, if you will. But she's a real estate agent and she's a super high producing agent in a very small military town. And so I said to her, create a series that people want, not what you think they need, right? Mm-hmm. So what you think they need is not what they actually want, right? And the idea behind Instagram, and I'm going off on a tangent here briefly, what people want on Instagram, right, is scroll stopping material, something that's going to make them stop and think, hey, I didn't even think about that. Or something that is going to help them feel connected to you, right? So to create some kind of connection between me and you. And I talk about the 3 C's and we can talk about that later on. But this particular agent, when she was creating a series, she said, the thing that I really want to do is I want to empower other wives of military members to get their real estate license. I want them to realize that they can have a career even though they move all across the country and can't necessarily, keep a corporate job, but I want them to be able to make money and stand on their own. She herself has done that, right? So I said, this is awesome. Now let's talk about military towns. I now live in a very small military town, so I definitely have that problem, but there's no coffee shops here, right? Steve, you and I have laughed about that before. There's literally one Starbucks and it's 17 miles away and it's on base. Luckily, I can get on base. But like for all of the general public, like that's awful, right? So I said to my client, Alex, I said, girl, you need to write a series on the top 5 things that people miss when they live in military towns, for the sole purpose of creating conversation that's going to develop connection, that's going to lead to people wanting to work with you, because they're going to want to work with you, not because you're a real estate agent, but why? Because you're cool and you're giving them something to think about. You're creating some kind of virtual relationship with them based off of shared pain points. Right. So this is the value series. The big misconception behind value series is that people have to always talk about real estate or always talk about loans, when in reality, what you should be talking about is pain points of your people. So Steve, I'll send it back to you before I go into the rest of the pillars and say, your people, right? People who want or need to do loans or want to buy a house, right? And you have to do their loan. What are they struggling with? And most likely it's really not about the process of getting a loan. There's other things going on in their life. Am I right?
Yeah. Okay. So, hey, let's talk this out. So shared pain points of our people, somebody looking to get a loan or looking to buy a home. What would be a pain point? A pain point might be low inventory, right? Hey, how do I find the right house? Is that what you're thinking, or what? Help me think this out.
No, I want you to go deeper than that, right? So that person who needs to buy a new home,
yeah,
the actual pain point is not that they need to buy a new home. That's a want, right? Or that's a desire. But the actual pain point of why they need to buy a new home is one step behind that. It's they just had a second baby, right? Or their husband, lost his job and they have to downsize so that because they can't afford the big house or the big mortgage payment anymore, right? Or they need to renovate, or they need a kid to go to college and they need to, cash out, refi, right? What do they need to do? What's their actual pain point as far as why they need the new loan or why they need a new house? So That's the content. That's that is where your content should be rooted in, or the framework of how you create content. Not, I'm a loan officer, what can I talk about when it comes to loans?
Yeah. Well, man, what a great point. So you just have to keep stepping back the layers to find out where the conversation can be started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about conversation.
I love it.
I mean, think about that realtor, right? Who's going to create a series on the top 5 things that you miss when you live in a military town. How many people who live in military towns are going to be like, dude, there's no coffee shops. Oh my gosh, the only grocery store is Walmart. Oh my gosh, the nearest grocery store is 45 minutes away because we literally live in the middle of where, aka like Bumble blank, right? Yeah. So it's like, hi, I get that. I feel that. And that's how conversation starts, because we have that shared connection. And then ultimately, if you're a good agent and if your content says that you're an agent, which is another point, or if your content says that you're a loan officer, right? That's how you can generate conversion on the platform.
Well, that's so powerful. And I was even just thinking, you want the people that are watching or that are on social to say, oh, me too. Oh, me too. I know that. Oh my gosh, that's what I feel. Oh my gosh, that's it. That's the answer. I love that. I love it. Hey, we'll talk about the 3 C's. You've already said it a couple of times. What do you mean by 3 C's is this of Instagram or social media?
This is really social media as a whole. But I'm a big philosophy as far as not philosophy. I'm sorry. I'm a big psychology person, same PSY starting, but I'm a big psychology person, and the method behind what we're doing, as you've probably started to figure out already, is that this isn't about how many followers we have. This is not about how many likes we get on our content. This isn't about how many story views we're getting. It's about, are the 3 C's happening? Because if the 3 C's are happening, then it's not a question of if you're going to get business. It's solely a matter of when. So I've actually already said all 3 of the C's, but I'll break it down in order. So C number 1 is connection. We have to post personal content. We have to be personal. We have to be vulnerable in order to create connection with somebody else. The second C is conversation, right? So we have to be willing to engage ourselves on the platform. We have to be willing to go out and reply to stories. We have to be willing to watch other people's content so that we can have conversations and find things that we are in agreement on, or that we have shared passion or interest around. And then the third C is conversion. So connection has to happen first, right? We have to find some kind of mutual connection between me and you, right? And for you and I, Steve, there's a multitude of them, right? But we have some layer of connection. And then the conversation was super easy, because if you remember our first conversation, I think we talked about God for the first 15 minutes, right? before we even got into anything else, which that conversation, the key there is that conversion. So the third part where you and I are now working together was so easy. It didn't even feel like a sales call, or it didn't even feel like a business discussion, because the conversation was so based or so rooted in connection, right? So see how I reverse engineered it, right? Conversion leads to, or before conversion has to happen, you have to have great conversation. Before you can have great conversation, you have to have mutual shared connection.
I love it. Well, and it's so powerful when you lay it out like I mean, really, I think a lot in formulas, and that's just what it takes. Hey, let me ask you this. When you're doing posts, and I love peeling back the layer, I think to be good in social, you have to be thoughtful. And I think being thoughtful and watching other people that are effective, you'll get even better. But let me ask you this. How many times, when you say post 3 times a week or 5 times a week, are you posting stories? Are you making posts? Are you doing reels? How do you know not only how often to post, but which area within Instagram? And I know a lot of that now carries over into Facebook, but how do you know where to set it, where to land the content? And then I want you to talk about repurposing content. How do you make sure that we're leveraging or exhausting all of the content that we've got? So talk about that.
Yeah. Let me make sure. I'm gonna do this in 2 sections, or 3 sections really. So section number 1 is, what is our content supposed to even be a combination of? Number 1 is personal content. I call it lifestyle content. So lifestyle content is exactly what it sounds like. It is anything from your camera roll. It is, you taking a picture on a walk with your son. It's you going and playing flag football with your buddies on Thanksgiving, which I know a lot of pros do, right? It's you going and getting a cup of coffee at your favorite coffee shop up the street. It's you doing life, right? So that's what lifestyle images is. And one of the things I always tell people is, if you're trying to create connection with other individuals or like-minded individuals that you'd want to do business with, post content that is where you can generate business from, right? So I'm just going to make this up and pretend that, Steve, you have a kid that likes flag football. I'm just making this up, right? So if that's true, and you go to the flag football game on Saturdays and you talk to all the other parents, and you've probably gotten some deals from some of those parents because of the connection with your kids, and they now know that you're a loan officer, you should be posting about that stuff on your profile, because if that's a place that you can genuinely say you got business from, you need to be sharing it, right? So pillar of content number 1 is lifestyle. Pillar number 2 is value series, which we've already talked about. Pillar number 3 is your testimonials, or testimonies in that sense. And this does not need to be, the 5 sentences that somebody left you on a Google review. This could be a video. This could be you going and interviewing the business owner of the coffee shop, because you go and you have coffee there every Friday morning with your team, and you just want to love on the community. So testimony can be a kind of like, think business spotlight, charity spotlight, testimonial from an actual client, anywhere kind of in that realm. And then pillar number 4, specifically for real estate agents, not so much loan officers, is going to be showcasing your transactional history, right? So listing, under contract, sold, open house, that kind of thing. Because if I go to your profile and I can't tell that you actually sell real estate, I'm not hiring you. So those are the 4 pillars. Now, moving into your second question, which is, where do you put them? Which combination thereof? I always tell people, do you want me to stop real quick, Steve?
No. Keep going. I think this is great.
Okay. Just making sure. So the breakdown of content on your feed, which is the content that stays there forever and is gridded out. This is the content that can be pre-planned. So there's a little bit more strategy involved. It's based off those 4 pillars that we just discussed. So your feed is the 4 pillars. Your stories are completely random and off the cuff. I actually tagged you in one first thing this morning. I don't know if you saw that, Steve, but getting ready to come on here with you, right? I just got my phone out. I hit a record real fast and said, I can't wait to go live with Steve. Make sure to check it out. And I tagged you. Boom. Story number 1 for the day done, right? So the goal is 5 stories, or 5 to 7, I would say, per day. And this is the same number that I would always say, no matter where you've heard me or what category, right, you're kind of in as far as how you got to me. So 5 to 7 stories per day. It could be as simple as like, here, let me get my video out and do a boomerang of me hitting go on my coffee pot, right? Super simple, super easy. Does not need to be overly complicated. But stories are very off the cuff. They're not necessarily planned. You walk in, let's pretend you're going to a closing, right? And you're so excited to go see the buyers close on their loan. So you do a boomerang of you opening the door to the title office, right? Done. Piece of content number 3, right? It's so simple and so easy. And people say, oh, I don't do anything fun. I'm boring. No, you're not. If you're doing loans and you're sitting behind your computer, you have content, right? Do a boomerang of you showing that you locked the loan, right? There's so many ways that you can go about it. Take a picture of your coffee cup, take a picture of your lunch. Like people always say, nobody cares what I eat. False, right? Post it and say, what are you eating for lunch with an engagement sticker and see what other people are saying, right? Or what other people are doing. So that's your story content, your feed content. And then Reels is something that we've been talking a lot about. I'll tell you, one of my New Year's resolutions for myself is to make 2 Reels a month. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have 500 moving parts going on, that's what I'm committed to doing, right? I already made my Reel this morning for today.
Yeah.
So today was one of my 2 days for the month. So Reels are meant to be fun. The Reel I did this morning, the opening of it was me with all my baby stuff on, right? So like I had a burp cloth on, I had my pump and my bottles and all, like everything everywhere. And then the second part of the Reel was me getting dressed up to get ready for my day, which is what I look like now.
That's so funny.
It took me 15 minutes to make total from start to finish. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it does. Hey, are you editing Reels? Is that something you're editing, adding music? No, not really. You're just recording.
Reels, you add music to, you just choose popular or trending songs.
That's awesome.
Really, that's about it. There's no editing really involved. I mean, some of it you have to like trim clips a little bit, but for the most part, the only time Reels get really hairy, if you will, is if you're trying to do, like where you've seen people jump and switch outfits.
Oh yeah.
You just have to be willing to like change outfits, right? So today I did that. So I had to make a transition. But it took, like I said, it took me 15 minutes from start to finish, including the outfit change and straightening my hair.
I love it. Hey, well, talk to me about software where you post content. What are you using right now when you're planning content and then you're posting scheduled content? What's the best software to drop scheduled content?
Yeah, so I've been using Planoly, Planoly, for the last 6 years. There's a lot of different ones out there. The reason I love Planoly is it allows me to save and house all my hashtag content. The analytics that are in there are ridiculous. They're very telling as far as how your content's doing. It allows me to schedule stories. It now allows me to schedule Reels. So there's all kinds of things that we can do in it. It auto posts to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest if you choose to go any of those 4. LinkedIn is supposedly coming, but they've been saying that for about the last 4 or 5 months. So hopefully that actually happens this year.
Yeah.
But the reason I love it too is a side note is you can see your grid. So you can actually, when you're planning your content, you can actually shuffle tiles around and move things into place so that you can really create the brand and the aesthetic that you're after, which is a whole nother conversation because I don't think people take branding seriously enough.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and I'd love to get into grids. I know we're running short on time, but man, I've got to tell you, Michelle, what a great conversation. Tell me, give us some final thoughts. Like if I'm a loan officer and I said, okay, I'm committed to social 2022, what are your thoughts, the last thoughts of, hey, be thinking about this, or here's what you need to do, or give us a challenge. What do we do?
Yeah, I would say if you want to do a challenge, let's do a challenge. And I encourage every single person watching this to go in Canva and actually create content that's customized to you. I don't care if it's 3 templates, like 1 for each pillar. Create branded templates that are specific to you, not your loan companies that you log in and you just hit publish from within an app, right? Like create your own content that is yours, and email them to me. If you need help with them, email them to me, right? Michelle@BurmaMediaPD.com. It's that simple. If you're struggling with Canva, there's 100 university videos on there that you can learn how to do it better. So that's the challenge. As far as like my final thoughts for all of you guys is stop making excuses as to why you can't engage yourself on the platform. So Steve, I know that it's you returning my messages when I send you a DM on Instagram. Right. I know that hopefully everybody knows that when they message me, it's me replying, right? Because I understand the power of being visible and being present on the platform. Yeah. So hiring out all of that, and just because you hire someone to help you with social media does not give you an excuse to not be on the platform. You still have to have the app on your phone. You still have to be willing to have conversations. And you have to be willing to do some form of engagement every single day, whether that's 10 minutes while you're sitting making a cup of coffee in the break room. You just have to be committed to it.
Well, and I tell you, it's a bigger piece of just staying top of mind and aware. You want your clients and your realtor partners and your sphere of influence to be thinking about you and to be top of mind. And it's a great way to do it. So, hey, Michelle, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and says, hey, I'd love help with my social, love help with Instagram, how do they get in touch with you?
I would say either email me, Michelle at BermanMediaPD, P as in Paul, D as in dog.com, or DM me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Berman Media Social, BERMAN Media Social.
Yeah. Hey, and because you have a program that you've developed called the Instagram Power Method. And I know several people that are already working with you having great success. And so if you're listening today, you want to learn more about social and feel like you need help, I got to tell you, Michelle is a great resource for that. Thank you for taking time to jump on the podcast today and really just contribute to our audience and help keep us straight and narrow when it comes to social, man. I've got a whole page full of notes. And so we're going to do some takeaways and some things to implement. And I always appreciate you, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship, and I'm excited for what 2022 is going to look like.
We got a lot of great things planned, girl. It's going to be fun. Hey, and for all of our listeners, just remember this: anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Just get started. See ya.